Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum class. I welcome you to English grade 7 video lessons. This is your instructor Zia Hamid. I hope that you're doing well and all ready and set to learn something new today. So for grade 7, we are on our unit number 3. The title is Paradise or Paradise Lost. It's a poem and I hope that you have already read it. Now this will be our competency of reading and critical thinking, lecture number 3B, and we are dealing with figures of speech. Now let's read our students learning outcome and see how we can achieve it in this video lesson. So my dear learners, our students learning outcome is identify rhyme and rhythm, repetition, similes, metaphors, personification, and sensory images in poems. Now, my dear learners, we are only going to see rhyme and rhythm, repetition or alliteration as we call it, similes, metaphors, and personification, and we will deal with sensory images in poems later in any other video lesson. So these are the things that we are going to achieve specifically in poems and in poetry. Now, this is our vertical linkage that you have already covered in the previous grade. I hope that you remember most of it and you can recall as much as you can. Now, for our brainstorming session for today's video lesson, we have a very interesting prompt for you. If you remember, now what do you know about figures of speech and why do we use them? So, do you know about figures of speech? Just storm your brains a little bit, think about it, and then come back quickly because we are going to start our topic of figures of speech and let's see what they are. Now, figures of speech, these are creative ways to use words that make language more interesting and expressive. They are not meant to be taken literally, but are used to give a special effect or feeling. So, my dear learners, in figurative language, we don't take things literally. They are figures of speech that make our writing and our speech interesting and beautiful and artistically creative. Now, let's see that in figures of speech, we have so many different figures of speech. Let's get started with the ones that are mentioned in our students learning outcome. Now, for this one, alliteration, it's a literary device or a figure of speech in which a number of words having the same first consonant sound occur close together in a series. Let's look at it with an example. Now, Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Now, this uses the sound P over and again, and it's coming a lot. We know that the sound of P or the letter P in English is a consonant. So the consonant is being repeated again and again. So it has a lot of repetition. This is what we call alliteration, and it's very much used in poetry and also in tongue twisters when we use tongue twisters to actually enhance our articulation and our speech. Now, all these have the same first consonant sounds, which is of P, and there are a lot of other consonants that can come that you can find in poetry and in tongue twisters. So this is our alliteration where we are having and encountering the same consonant sound again and again in the whole verse or in the whole line. Now, let's talk about another figure of speech, which is simile. Now, simile is a literary device, or we could say a figure of speech that compares two things using the words like or as. So, let's see with an example. I was standing perfectly still like a statue. Now, instead of just saying that I was standing I was standing still, you can compare it with standing like a statue, and we know that statue is something that is still and it doesn't move. So this thing is being compared with the subject who is standing perfectly still. And we use the word like over here for our simile. Or you can also use words as much as, or as cool as cucumber. So like and as are used for our similes. In simile, we just compare two things using the word like or as. It is very simple to understand, and similes can be used in both your writing and your speech, and mostly they are used to give a very good idea to the reader and comparing two things so that one is very much clear and is compared to for a better understanding. Now, after simile, let's talk about personification. Now, personification is made up of the word person. Let's see how it is justified. Now, personification is giving a human quality to an inanimate object, to a non-living object, non-living being. Any type of emotion, gesture, thought, or action that a person would make can be applied to any non-human object or inanimate object using personification words. For example, flowers are dancing, trees are bored, clouds are angry. Now, we know that dancing is a human quality. It is what associated with human beings, with living beings. Now, flowers are dancing. It is a personification. Flowers are being personified with the human qualities. Trees are bored. So now here, boredom is something that human beings feel. It is an emotion that is specifically for human beings. Now, when we are associating with something like trees, we are using personification. And lastly, clouds are angry. Here in this sentence, clouds are angry, we are associating anger, which is an emotion, a feeling, with clouds. Now we know that clouds do not get angry. It means that it is going to rain, or it will be a thunderstorm. So instead of just saying, that due to the wind, the flowers are moving here and there, you just used a personification, a figure of speech, by saying that flowers are dancing. Or instead of saying that clouds are, it is going to rain heavily, the clouds are making noise and there's a thunderstorm, you could just say that clouds are angry to associating with raining heavily. So all these are personifications. It is a figure of speech. It enhances our sentences and it conveys our ideas and our message beautifully and artistically. Now, let's talk about two different kind of poems, haiku and sinken. Now, let's talk about haiku. Haiku is a Japanese poem. These poems have 17 syllables in 3 lines. The pattern is line number 1 will have 5 syllables, line 2 will have 7 syllables, line 3 will have 5 syllables. Haiku poems are often about nature and they don't rhyme. Now, we know that haiku is a Japanese poem. They have 17 syllables in the 3 lines. And these syllables are divided with 5 syllables in line 1, 7 in the line 2, and 5 in the line 3. Now, this kind of poem is what we call a haiku. And they are about nature and there's no specific rhyme scheme, there's no rhythm and no rhyme. Let's look at here. Trees sway in the breeze, the wind gently blow the leaves, leaves swirl to the ground. This is a haiku. Now let's talk about a Sinken poem. The structure consists of 5 lines in total with a specific syllable pattern, 2 syllables in the first line, 4 syllables in the second line, 6 syllables in the third line, and 8 syllables in the fourth line, and 2 syllables in the fifth line. The poem typically captures a specific image or idea in a concise and shorter manner. Now here you can see 5 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now there are ocean, 2 syllables in the first one, 4 in the second, 6 in the third, and 8 in the fourth line, and finally 2 syllables in the fifth line. So this kind of poem will be called Sinken poem. Now, we have seen both haiku and Sinken poems. They are very easy to write, and you can write as many haikus and Sinken poems as much as you can because it is very easy. So, and the poetry is about, in haiku it's about nature, and in Sinken it is also about nature and your surroundings and your environment. Now, let's talk about your classroom activity for today. You have to identify simile, alliteration, and personification in the following poem. Now, identify all these 3 figures of speech that we learned. Simile, when we used to compare two things with the words like or as. Personification, where we personify inanimate objects with human-like qualities and human emotions or gestures. And finally, alliteration, where the consonants are repeating over and again in the line, starting with the first letter of the word. So alliteration comes, and you can easily identify all these 3 in this poem given below. Now, this is your simulation video for better understanding that you can watch later, and you will learn more about figures of speech, how we can use them effectively. This is your worksheet to solve, and let's talk about the homework. So from the books page, you can see for B, you will be writing haiku poem as we talked about it, inspired by nature. Choose a specific natural element such as a flower, tree, or season and capture its essence in 3 lines. And my dear learners, if you go back in the previous slide, we have already covered the haiku poem, how the poem in 3 lines is divided into different syllables so that you can write it completely according to the rules. And again, for a Sinken poem, you have to compose a Sinken poem about your favorite animal. Begin by selecting an animal that you find fascinating. So, learning about haiku and Sinken poems, now it's time to put them into practice and write a beautiful haiku and a Sinken poem. We are here at the end of our video lesson with some resources introducing to you for your better understanding. You can access them easily in the description of the video. We have skill sheet, question bank, worksheet, lesson plan, and a presentation. These are accessible and they are for your help. Now, thank you for listening. I hope that you had great time learning about figures of speech. Why do we use them? And they are not meant to be taken literally. They are to beautify our writing and our speech. We talked about figures of speech like alliteration, personification, and rhyme, and also simile. And we also saw that how they are divided into different parts, and we also looked them with examples. we talked about haiku and sequent poem and how do we compose such kind of poems. Thank you for listening. Till the next video lesson. Allah Hafiz.